Charles. Professor Chuck. Put all your pre-orders in at Dorkside Toys. Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Today, let's take a quick, or well, semi-quick, look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends House of X-Wave. As everybody knows, I'm not up on modern comics yet. I finally got something big so my old blind eyes can read Marvel Unlimited without what's going on in that panel over there. So I'm about to start working my way back to you, babe. No, working my way through the new X-Men comics. But even not knowing those storylines, I looked at these figures like Cyclops. That's undeniably Cyclops. We have Magneto back here, Marvel Girl in a very classic look. Moira MacTaggert. I know who Moira MacTaggert is, and she's in some kind of throwback clothing. Hey, that works for me. Wolverine, I mean, he's got the claws. He's got a Wolverine costume. I'm interested. Professor X in what looks like a down and dirty costume. I mean, to hell with costumes, right? Just throw on a black bodysuit, wear Cerebro around a lot, and hey, it's Professor X. And then, is this, well, besides Moira, there is Omega Sentinel as being the two new characters to the line in this wave. Which is okay because, like I say about every toy line out there, you gotta keep the big dogs on the shelf. So old characters, maybe new attitudes from what I understand, new looks. On the side panels you get art from the comics representing each character. You get the characters' names in Krakoan, and then bios for each up at the top. That same art, just in a bigger circle. The Build-A-Figure Tri-Sentinel, the other characters in the wave, each sold separately. Warning, small parts, don't put them in your mouth. Up on top, there's the X's. Don't run away from me, I love you. On the bottom, more legalese, UPCs, but let's start with Magneto, because hey, why not? I have a feeling some of these looks are going to be fairly quick because of mostly reuse. So we're going into known territory with a couple of these figures. I like the simple X on the back, and again, Krakoan across the top, but the rest of it's just bright white. Speaking of bright white, hell with it. Oh, well. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this costume, I thought, nah, I don't like it. But having it in hand and looking at the whites with the black lines, the silver to certain parts, it's okay. I'm not in love with it yet, but maybe I need to see it in the context of a storyline or something. And like I mentioned, a lot of reuse from this Magneto. Is this the Amazon 3-pack version? Same cape, same torso, same legs, down to the boots at least. The old school Magneto has sculpted detail down there. Same thing for the arms, same shoulders, same bicep, different forearms. And then the helmets are different too. In fact, I kind of think this is an all-new sculpt. Or I could be wrong about that. We've seen several different versions of this helmet in the line, so maybe this is one that I didn't find on my shelf. Like I mentioned, the forearms, completely new sculpt. It has that Magneto-esque design work from the cape that we've seen for years and years. The belt's got some detail work, the banding on the belt going around. And again, it's kind of a callback to pouches in the 90s. The red and black X really stands out. And the same can be said for the black line work on the costume. It's very clean from what I can tell. There may be a bit of slop right there. Oh, they even did that back there where I will never see it under the cape. But doing a quick search on Google, it seems the costume in the comics has this padded look, which I understand. This is reuse. We usually miss out on details like that, but a lot of pictures also had two black bands at the top of each boot. And it's not in all the pictures, but I would have liked to seen that here just to make the legs not disappear into the overall design. This accentuates the torso a bit, upper legs. Bands down here would have brought it all together, I think. The silver paint's also pretty clean. It comes around. Oh, well, it gets up on the cape a bit right there. I wonder if Magneto's face is reused from something. That looks odd. For the cape, it's a nice dynamic look. I love all the wrinkles in it, but I've never liked how it sits when you have the back peg plugged into the hole. It kind of floats above. For articulation, again, this is an older body, but we'll run through it real quick. They didn't leave a lot of gap up in the head to get movement on the hinge at the neck that goes up to a ball. Looks up, looks down, a little bit tilt. Swivel, shoulder hinges up, rotates around. Swivel at the bicep, double elbow comes up to there, but the sculpt bounces off his bicep. Grip hand for some reason, but it has an up and down hinge. Ab crunch goes way forward. Arcs back, Swivel at the waist. You heard that pop, right? That's the first time I've moved it. It was a little stuck, but not a problem. Ball coming out to the hip, goes forward, goes back, out, swivel at the thigh, double knee. And that pop was my finger. I'm getting old, shut up. Double knee goes, what the hell? Goes to there. Swivel at the boot, hinge at the ankle, goes back. Big D tense, goes forward. Forward facing pin for rocker. For accessories, like I mentioned, there are 2 grippy hands. That may be a thing where he uses something in the comics. Pop those out. Also comes with 2 fists, or 2, what I always think of like power wielding hands, or floating across the battlefield look. Next up, let's open up Wolverine.
You got a problem with that, bub?
And even though it's a new costume from comics that I haven't read yet, it's still very Wolverine. Much like the astonishing look updated the old yellow and blue, this is a perfect modern rendition of the brown and tan. It reuses all of the X-Force Wolverine, except for the head, of course. For a minute, I thought the biceps were different because they switched those at some point, but it's really just a different paint application for the arm hair. This is more what I think from the comics, but this is a bit more subtle. Oh, and there's a different belt too. I'm not sure if this is reuse. I was gonna say that the claws are reused because they have that same comic book style kick in them that comes down at the point, but it's actually a different shape. These are straight until you get to that bend. Again, the red X stands out against the overall design of the figure, and then there's a leathery texture to the belt all the way around. But no pouches! Where's Wolverine gonna store his deodorant? The bands on the arms look good, same for the legs. I'm also noticing the brown used on the boots and gloves is lighter than the brown used on the costume, and at first it stuck out at me, but I like the contrast. Just a good overall design. I feel like Hasbro has hit Wolverine out of the park since they came up with this new short, stocky body for him. There's no reason to change because it completely works for the character. The head may be slightly large, but again, that may fall into the proportions used on how tall is Wolverine? 5'4" or something like that. A lot of people don't like the smile, but I don't know. We've gotten a lot of different Wolverine looks, so to have one happy with what he's doing, or even if it is kind of an angry sneer, I'm about to cut your arms off look, yeah, it still works for Wolverine. One thing I will say, and I probably should have said it with Magneto, I may say it a few more times in this review, but for the males, it seems they've skipped out on the lip paint, and I feel like that would add just a subtle little oomph to it. For articulation, there is a hinge at the top of the neck with a ball going into the skull. Looks up, looks down, a little bit of tilt, swivel. Butterfly joint has beautiful range. Hinge at the shoulder comes up, rotates around, swivel at the bicep, double elbow comes up. Hinge at the wrist, swivel, ab crunches forward. Can he look up while he's ab? Because that's how I always think of Wolverine. Come get some, bub. Or back? Yeah, there's a swivel at the waist below the belt. Ball at the hip comes, forward. I forgot this body kicks that high up. Back, out, he's in first so far. Swivel at the thigh is just bam, right out there in the open, but it serves its purpose. Double knee comes up. Oh yeah. Bub, bub, bub. Hinge at the ankle goes back, goes forward. Forward facing pin for some rocker ankle action. For accessories, besides his smiling face, that pops off. And there is this, very tight. Behind the camera power. There's this more serious, somber head that a lot of people feel like should have been the unbearded look. And when it comes to that gray beard, I have no idea what's going on there. So you could probably just find some flesh paint, be good with it, because Wolverine's a hairy guy. That head does look good. But yeah. Next up, gotta look at Cyclops. And for some reason, the older I get, the more I like Cyclops. I don't know if it's because of adult responsibilities or something. When you're a kid, you're reading the comics, your favorite is Gambit or Wolverine, the guys that buck authority and just go do their own thing. They're cool, they're bad boys. But then you get older, you start making house payments, and you feel more responsible for your life in general. And Cyclops seems to grow on you more and more. And you think, well, every team does need that stick up his butt guy, or nothing would ever get done, right? Plus, most of Scott's costumes have a good classic look to them. It's just tights, some blues, and some line work. And like Magneto, I didn't think I would like this as much as I do, but the lighter blue against the darker blue, it just seems to work. And I also like that this ties back to Magneto's as almost a team look, even though not a lot of other characters in the comics seem to have that. So between those two, and look, lines down at the legs. So with this going on up here, it ties into the lower portions too. Without those, yeah, see? Top heavy. But what do I know? I'm just talking about toys on the internet. But not only do they share a similar spandex design, they also share belts. Oh, now that I have them side by side, they are not the same belt. Magneto's X buckle is concave. Cyclops is convex. I guess it was the pouches that made me think, oh, just the same. And then Cyclops' pouches are slightly larger. It's not a contest, Scott. And then more pouches overall. A win. The body is that good old Bucky cap body that has been used for nearly every Cyclops we've gotten in Marvel Legends. In fact, maybe every Cyclops. If it were me, I'd like him slightly taller, but I guess consistency is good too. For the head, it's reuse of the 2-pack Cyclops we got with, what was it, Jean Grey? But I really like the silver look. Of course, I'm a big Astonishing fan, so when it went silver for that arc, I was like, oh, Cyclops should always have silver. Again, that ties back to Magneto. I'm seeing a trend here. But besides the belt, we also get new forearms. From what I can tell, pretty accurate to the comics. Some swirly, twirly silver plastic that blue? Is that the same light blue? I like how it looks a little glowy. I guess they thought, hey, let's just do the whole arm, and went with the pinless elbow look. And again, I'll bring it up, especially for Cyclops, who is a character that you can't see the eyes. Some lip paint would have added a bit of humanity to it. Going over articulation, hinge, ball and skull. Looking up, looking down, not much tilt. Swivel for days. Shoulder hinges, oh, that's a big detense. Up, rotates around. Double elbow, past 90. Hinge at the wrist with some swivel. Crunches, arcs, cut at the waist. Ball to the hip, back. Cyclops wins. Swivel at the thigh. Double knee. Going with this? Oh, no, not quite. He may have a stick there, but no foot. Swivel at the, well, not boot, mid-shin. Ankle hinges back, hinges forward. Woo! Forward-facing pin for rocker. For accessories, we again explore the head-popping realm. Alternate head pops on, pops on. The alternate head has gritting teeth, some power leaking out of the visor, and then a power effect that plugs in. And this is reuse of the alternate head from the X-Force Cyclops. Hey, if it works, go for it. Next up, Professor X. Or, well, I guess Charles Xavier. One thing I noticed on the package here, and it's only because of the die cut around a perfect circle, but you see that it's off. You also see that I scratched the hell out of it right there. That being off makes the print up here kind of come around the front. So did I just mar $1 million variation? I was opening it anyway. Who cares? The odd thing about this figure and this design is that as much as I didn't think I would like Magneto and Cyclops, I had actually looked into customizing this look way before this was announced. When I first saw this in the comics, I thought, oh, just a nice simplistic design. When I think of the Professor's personality, and I know this is going to be odd to say, but this is what I think of. Just no nonsense. It's all about what's on and in the head. You get up close, and he seems to be enjoying himself. He's got a slight smirk to it, like, I am the smartest guy in the room, and if not, I can make it to where I'm the smartest guy in the room. And that's what this is. This whole body is reused from, I can't remember, was it originally Spider-Man 2099 or something? But on my shelf, this was the first one I picked out. Same feet, same legs, same torso, same arms. Different hand options, but again, those could come from anywhere. Again, quick Google search. Most of the pictures I find of Xavier from House of X, it has some extra detail work, like some seam running across. But what is basically black spandex, it's never gonna poke out at you. Again, reused body that didn't need to go into resculpting a whole new torso for it. Because they went and sculpted the whole head. Again, I don't know if he runs around like this all the time in the new comics. I have seen some panels without the helmet. This is how he'll be on the shelf. A cool looking futuristic Cerebro helmet, and there's your big X. To me, my X-Men. And I hate to harp on it, just a bit of lip paint would have, done wonders. Articulation, hey, surprise, it's a hinge with a ball going into the skull. Looks up further than I thought it would with a helmet on. Looks all the way down. Tilt, probably the best so far. Swivel, butterfly joint, not bad range either. Shoulder hinges up, rotates, swivel at the bicep. Double elbow comes most of the way up. Hinge wrist goes about. Crunches, crunches just there. Back, oh, that far. That's kind of terrible, but there is some movement, and again, it's Chuck. Swivel at the waist, ball at the hip, but he can high kick all to hell. Back, out. Oh, well, after that high kick, that's disappointing. Swivel at the thigh, double knee, easily. That's not my brain. Hinge at the ankle, goes back, goes way forward. Forward facing pin for rocker. For accessories besides this, well, that's not quite a grip hand. He's got a trigger finger. That's interesting. And then kind of a relaxed, I guess you could do this or this. Those pop out. And for extras, the right hand is a 2-finger pointy hand. The left is a 1-finger pointy hand. And you know what that's for. He can use his mental powers, or he can lead the team, or he can have finger guns. That also pops off, and okay, those are rubbery. You're not going to break those. I am not having any luck with this today. And you have this cool kind of telepathy halo effect behind a head with closed eyes. He's really concentrating. But I don't like this look. In fact, this looks a bit like Vanisher, huh? So if you have the Jim Lee era hover chair, Professor X, skin tones don't quite match up though, but if you have him sitting there leaning forward, you barely see the neck. For me, this is staying on forever. Know what I mean? Next up, let's look at Moira MacTaggert. Moira. And I didn't set out to save the women of the wave for last. It's because they come with a lot of newer parts than the guys. And it's cool to finally get a Moira for the shelf. She's always been one of those characters that you're aware of in the comics, but in the overall scheme of things, I would have never added her to my top 10, top 20 list. Having her in hand now, it's like either classic, modern, whatever. Because when I see her in the lab coat, it's very, you know, back Muir Island. They'd visit every now and then, or she'd come over and visit the X-Men when there was a science problem, or they needed help, something. And Hasbro did a good job of reusing the Gwen Stacy body without making it too obvious. Same legs, same skirt, same torso, same arms, and I think that's the biggie. That covers up what would be the most obvious in reuse parts. And while Gwen has a bigger, higher heel on her shoe, these are reused from the Peggy Carter from the Captain America 2-pack. The lab coat even has some pins, blue, and it's black. I keep pushing on the shoulders thinking it's gonna come down because it seems to be riding really high. Oh, I see what's going on. It's sitting up on the collar of the body. Spoiler alert, the head pops off. So what if we take that and move it down right there? Pushing it down a little right here seems to take that shoulder gap out. I think in a perfect world, I would buy 2 of these. And again, there's an alternate look. We'll get to that here in a second. But I would buy 2 of these and put some glue right there and pull it down for that to lay more natural. The more I mess with it, the more that rides up like that. But see what lip paint can do, and it's not just because this is a woman, it breaks up the fleshiness of the face. But then underneath the glasses, are those a separate piece? Yeah. Looks like the eye paint is nicely applied. I'm looking at the eyebrows and they seem a bit raised, but that adds to the quizzical look. Maybe she's pondering, she's wondering. Looking at articulation, oh, there's a hinge under there. The ball going up into the head can look up, hair kind of gets in the way, looks all the way down. Tilt, again, hair hitting shoulders. Swivel, shoulder hinges up, rotates around. Hinge and swivel at the elbow comes up slightly past 90 and then rotates. Hinge at the wrist, rotation. Ball at the mid-torso, not a huge amount of movement. Oh, well, a little forward, little back, some tilt, mostly rotation. The skirt is split at the side, rubbery material, leg can come up. Would left do the same? It gets kind of traffic coned. Back, out, and it's better than some, not as good as others. Swivel at the thigh, double knee comes up. Boom, 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 boom. Hinge at the ankle goes back, goes forward. Slightly forward facing pin because of the heel, it's got to angle down, mostly rotation, slight rocker. For accessories, like I already mentioned, the head pops off and the arms pop off. That was kind of tough. I think the cold weather's messing with my poppability. Take the lab coat off. She comes with alternate arms that pop in. She has a neckerchief that goes down, and then an alternate head. And even though this feels like a 60s or 70s type look, I believe this is how she looks in the current issues, or at least at some point in the new series. Except I think this is supposed to be green, but I still really like this look. The texture matches the torso perfectly, like they were made for it. Makes me wish that Gwen came with those too to change up the look between her and Mary Jane. But here's the big ol' hands they give most of the female figures. And the left is a grip hand. So you can take that. Can you switch between the two? Yeah, I think I just found my MacTaggert look. I feel like she stands better than Gwen. Maybe it's the shorter heels. Leave the grip hand in because she also comes with this book. It's essentially just a slab of plastic with some detail work on the side, but then it has this atom with the X in the middle, and we all know what that means. Science! That works perfectly. What's the elbow range on these extra arms? Oh, let's, about like the lab coat. Next up, let's open the Omega Sentinel. Okay, right off the bat, I ain't gonna lie. I've never read a comic with this character in it. At least I think I haven't. But like I always say, good toys are good toys. It only takes a fantastic action figure for me to go, I wonder what's up with this character, or I really like this design, or it's definitely going on the shelf. And unless I'm crazy, I think this figure is a completely new sculpt. The paint is missing the black lines on the feet, but there are seams sculpted onto the foot. Here's a seam line running down, and the painted black lines that call back to Cyclops and, well, more Magneto because of the black on the bright white. The knee pads have extra sculpted detail, little round rivet or stud or something. Again, the paint misses, well, I say that. Yeah, it looks like this was supposed to be here, and it missed on both sides. On top of the paint being a bit sloppy and choppy. Oh yeah, because you get around to the back, the paint misses the seam line on the upper leg. The torso piece has this high belt coming around on the hip, around to the back, and it stops, but there's some seam lines running up and down. But more than that, do these emit something? Some kind of sensors? But it's nice sculpted detail. On the upper torso, there's some grooves sculpted down, round in circles coming up to the neck. But for me, it's all about the arms. That whole mechanical sentinel look. Got some raised edges with some red in the middle. Machine details down to the fist and the hand. I just love that look. Then up at the head, again, Googling. This is the look I come across whenever I search Omega Sentinel. She's got that red skin tone, the white lines drawn on it, and she's usually with a new version of Nimrod. The eyes are painted really well with the heavy black. And then the eyebrows, there's just something about them. Maybe it's because they're on the red, they stand out more than skin tone. Is there a slightly different color to the lips? Yeah, I'm on a lip kick today, I guess. Looking at the overall figure, the proportions just completely work for me. Such a natural at ease stance. And that's possible because of the articulation. Oh, well, there's a hinge at the top of the neck, ball going into the skull. Looks way up, looks way down. Not much tilt, but lots of swivel. Shoulder pad on the shoulder looks like it's going to get in the way of... Oh wait, no, it does the Star Wars thing. Shoulder pad is rubbery and glued at the bottom, so as you push up, it rides up onto the torso. Doesn't quite make it to 90, but further than I thought it would. Then that rotates around. Hinge and swivel at the elbow comes up, goes to 90. Then that rotates. Hinge at the wrist, around. Ball at the mid-torso, not bad at all. In fact, oh no, that's a dumbbell joint. So you can get some shift and some shift. Not as much crunch as you would get with a traditional hinge, but yeah, not bad. Kind of breaks when you arc back, but look at the tilt. Ball coming out to the hip, but it is set at a 45-degree angle. So as you come up, the leg rotates out. As much as that usually helps with the silhouette where the torso comes down over the hip, it doesn't break up the line as much. It feels, well, again, more natural. When it comes to articulating it, back, out, well, not terrible. Swivel at the thigh, double knee, easily. Donk, donk, donk. Hinge at the ankle goes back, goes way forward, forward-facing pin for rocker. For accessories, you can pull the hinge and swivel elbow out, both sides, and I guess her arms transform in the comics because you can plug in these weapon-looking arms. Or maybe I have those on the wrong side because that has detail sticking to the inside. I guess it doesn't matter. You can rotate there, have it inside or outside. The hinge is super tight. Be careful with that because it's just a pin sticking up into the arm. And the bend doesn't even really make it to 90, but most of the time, you're going to be holding that out like that. She just looks badass. This is a separate rubbery piece kind of covering the inside, but I like the extra paintwork. It makes it feel a little bit more on the left or right or whichever side you put this on. There's not any paint there. It's just the swirly twirly. I wish there was some kind of blast or beam, some blue, some red, something on the inside. That looks pretty good right there. But besides the arms, you can also pop the head. Pop on this alternate head, which I'm guessing, or from what I understand, is an older look. I absolutely love the sculpt of this hair. It gets in the way of movement, of course. There's no way around that. It adds more of an organic element to an overall robotic looking figure. But from what I understand, the character's nationality calls for a darker skin tone, so that's a shame. It's even different on the artwork of the package. Because I have the New School Nimrod from the Amazon pack, she's just gonna stand beside him like this, looking completely kick-ass. And lastly, for packaged figures that you don't have to build, let's open up Marvel Girl. And I'm most excited about her. Well, I was most excited when I saw she had went back to this costume in the comics because I was hoping we would get an action figure of that. Because when it comes down to it, the classic X-Men are my bread and butter. Oh, not to even mention adding some bright yellows and some bright greens to the shelf. I've always liked this costume. The contrast of that yellow and green with some red here, and then of course Jean's red hair. But it almost feels like Hasbro was going for some kind of in-between. This feels teenagery, which is okay because, again, I was hoping to use this on the classic shelf, and I may be able to do that, but there's some inconsistencies that come up. But before we get to that, I believe there is some new sculpting and some new engineering here. The legs may be reused again from that Gwen Stacy figure. And then like Moira, the feet are reused from Peggy Carter, which I can see them wanting to go for a shorter high heel, but then that throws this shoe sculpt into the middle of a boot. Up at the torso, I like the wrinkle sculpt. It doesn't look like a skin-tight costume. It looks like an actual dress. Not sure if the upper arm is reused, but are the gloves? Is that new? There's the split in the back, kind of old school looking, some very nice wrinkles. And then up at the head, I'm pretty damn sure that's a new sculpt. I love that they went ahead and painted the eyebrows right at the top. There's the lip paint. We won't get into that once again in this video. Nice eye paints. And then the hair sculpt is pretty good. It seems a little high right here, popping up, or maybe it's the mask holding it up. I wish they had went for a slightly darker shade of red. This is almost orange. It's fiery. It's jean grayish, but even on the package, it shows a darker shade of red. Well, hell, in fact, almost that. And besides the facial details, that's most of the paintwork on this figure. The black for the belt, and then the belt buckle. You can see the bleed of the red just slightly into the yellow. But at a distance on the shelf, it looks good. I mentioned the skirt. You can already tell, even though there's a split right there, this is not a soft material. Total traffic cone to the leg. Whoop, 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 whoop. Also, they went with no articulation in the mid-torso. There's a ball joint or even a dumbbell. It's nicely hidden. It doesn't break up the sculpt, but it also doesn't give you a lot of actual crunch. There's a slight tilt to the side and mostly back. So while I like the overall look, as an action figure, it doesn't function as well as it probably could. Because sticking with that, of course, there's a hinge at the top of the neck with a ball going into the skull. Can't really look up, can't look down. It does flex out of the way a bit. Not bad tilt either. Swivel, the arm hinges up, rotates around, hinge and swivel at the elbow. No, but it, man, rotates, hinge and swivel at the wrist. Again, there's your torso. It looks like there's a normal set of hips under there, but yeah, definitely a swivel under there though. Double knee comes up. Oh yeah. Bing. Hinge at the ankle goes back, goes forward. And again, the pin sticks more down than forward, so you get more rotation, slight rock. For accessories, if you don't want her punching people in the face, you can pop the hands out and pop in the, again, much used power-wielding female hands, which totally works in this case. And then there is this Krakoan flower pod. I love this thing for the simple fact that it brings the color purple into this wave. It is mostly globe-like, but there is a slight flat surface on the bottom if you want to set this on the ground. That works too. Then it's time to build the Tri-Sentinel, which, again, I'm not familiar with this, but I know what a Sentinel is, and this has some purplish color to it. It's robotic. It works for me. If you look inside the sockets, there is an R and an L, which I'm guessing is right and left. I'm pretty sure about that. For the arms, the thumb is the dead giveaway. This is the right arm, left arm. And then for the heads, I'm gonna guess this is left. Uh-oh, they both go in the same direction. They all three go in the same direction, but you can rotate it around, right, left, center. I've already heard people commenting on how hard it is to get the ball joints into the head, so I'm gonna go heat that up, soften it up a bit, pop those on, see what happens. And I jumped the gun on the purple thing, didn't I, with the flower, but it is a different shade. And this thing just has a creepy factor to it. I'm not familiar with this design from the comics, obviously, as I've said several times in this video, but getting it together and messing around with it, oh man, it's just... The overall figure gives me Spider vibes, or the SP//DR Build-A-Figure. It's the lankiness, the top heaviness, and at first I thought, oh, it's just gonna be as terrible to stand up as that, but I haven't had a super amount of problems here. Swirly, twirly, metallic looking plastic, which a lot of people don't like. But for me, it's kind of that comic book metal look. Some great sculpted details. The silver is all painted on, and it looks clean for the most part. Even when it misses in places, it's hard to see because of everything that's going on the surface. And then the rest is a very dark gray plastic. It seems to have almost a metal vibe to it. I don't know if there's like a silverish overspray or something inside the plastic, but it also works towards that big old robot effect. Very hunchy because the heads have to stick out at an angle. Like I said, I did have to heat that to get the ball joints of the necks to go in there, but now that I have it in there, I do any kind of movement and it seems to want to just pop out. Well, I say that, if you go within the normal means of movement, it does okay, but as soon as there's a little bit of friction on it, it pops out. Also, your brain tells you that you can rotate it around and have it looking out the top or something, but then the neck going into the skull it doesn't turn like that. You can't get the head around to look forward. But the articulation overall really helps in the posing, which is the point of articulation when you get down to it, but you know what I'm talking about. There's ball joints at the skulls and then ball joints going into the body. The shoulder hinges out, rotates around until you get to the body. Hinge and swivel at the elbow hinges up a good amount. Rotates, hinge and swivel at the wrist to a creepy amount of movement, accentuated by those long fingers. It's almost alien-like. Seems to be a ball joint on a hinge at this point right here. You can kick back, crunch forward really well, just a slight amount of tilt. Legs come out to a ball joint in the hip, and that comes all the way up, all the way back, out. Oh, well, if it wasn't for Cyclops, was it Cyclops that won? Swivel at the thigh, double knee, but because of the proportions, doesn't quite reach its own ass. Hinge of the ankle goes back, big detents in the ankle, so be careful with those, and I understand why they put them there with this much mass that high up from the ankle. They don't want those buckling. Goes forward, and forward facing pin for rocker. Oh, there's rotation at the torso too. With all of that together, you can fudge it into some pretty dynamic poses. In fact, I think this is what makes me like it most of all. Not so much the design, but what it looks like whenever you get all creepy with it. I mean, don't you wish all your Spider-Mans could do that? Size-wise, comparing the whole wave together, this is where some people may become annoyed. Most of all, Marvel Girl being as short as she is next to Cyclops. Now, if you look up Jean Grey's height, she is 5'6", and guessing where her head stops and her hair starts, that is pretty much dead on with the size here. Oops, sorry, Xavier. And then Cyclops stands at about 6 and 3/16, 6 1/4, somewhere in there. So the sizes are correct, we're just not used to that because most of the jeans we've had so far are about Cyclops' height. So if you have a Jean Grey display, it's going to look short. But then again, is this the teenage Jean Grey? I don't know. It's almost as if Hasbro went back, looked at the stats, and is now course correcting, but it's going to make, well, if you stand them like this, it's going to make her look a bit oddball. Because Moira doesn't seem that out of place at her height, which is the exact same height as Jean. But we don't have any frame of reference because we don't have other action figures of Moira. Omega Sentinel stands at pretty much 6 inches tall. And then Wolverine stands at 5 5/8, which is still tall for his comic book height. It is appropriately short compared to everybody else. And then Charles and Magneto are both about 6 3/8 inches tall. Oops, nearly forgot the Sentinel, who is about 8 inches tall to the top of the hunchback. So at the end of the day, another great wave of Marvel Legends, but if you're not into modern comics, then there's not a lot here for you. You can fudge Marvel Girl into your classics display or even Moira, but when it comes to the rest of them, it's their current looks, or well, close to current looks. This wave is kind of like the Age of Apocalypse wave. If you weren't into Age of Apocalypse, you can kind of pass on by, wait for the next wave. If you're not into House of X, you can pass on this wave. I think Age of Apocalypse was the first wave I had skipped in a long time. I did grab Morph because I'm a big Exiles fan, and I think there was somebody else in that wave. But for this wave, since I'm a huge Astonishing X-Men guy, where they took the classic feel of the costumes and shoved them into the modern era, I feel like that's what they did here. All the characters still have those classic beats, but just updated a bit. And I love that. Plus, I didn't like Age of Apocalypse. I know! And who knows if I like House of X, but it's an instant display, if nothing else. So yeah, all I can say is if you're reading the current comics, you're enjoying them, get you some action figures. If not, there's always another Marvel Legends wave right on the horizon. You won't be waiting long. But if you enjoyed this review, comment, like, subscribe. Special thanks to Dorkside Toys for getting this wave out to me. If you're in the market, put in some pre-orders, head over to Dorkside Toys. Much love to the plus if you're interested in seeing videos early or just in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. But wherever you may be watching this, I'll always catch you on the Fwoosh. This Marvel girl makes me want better Iceman. The more snowy look and the more angled look. Kind of classic and more classic. But then it's also been a while since we've had a good Angel. We need some feather wings, the old blue and white with the halo, or the red and white with the halo, either or. And then a reissue of that classic Cyclops, because, ooh, that 2-pack was hard to find at Toys R Us there for a while, wasn't it?